I'm so tired of the lamestream media. It's about time we get down to the real news. Get involved, get loud, and think on the brink. Well, we're coming to you from the Republican National Convention in Tampa, Florida. Welcome to a very, very busy week. And we join you here this morning with a very interesting guest and somebody I've been looking forward to meeting, and I think you will as well if you haven't seen his work, Jon McNaughton. And Jon is, what I find most interesting is, sure, he's an artist, but he's an artist with a message. And, you know, I always love art that sends a message. And Jon's work is probably a little polarizing to some, probably half the audience loves him and is just behind him, and the other half of the audience he's probably pissed off at some point. So anyways, Jon, welcome, buddy.
Thanks, Malcolm.
Would that be an assessment?
I think you nailed it there.
Well, that's American politics today. I mean, you please half the people and half the people you don't, right?
Yeah, and I knew when I painted these it would have that reaction.
All right. Well, all right. So let's talk about the inspiration behind this work, because the work is really, I mean, it is different on every level. This is not something you're going to see at the local gallery somewhere. So
probably not.
What's the inspiration behind all this, and when did this journey begin for you, Jon?
I've been doing art my whole life. I started painting back in the early 80s. But it wasn't until about 4 years ago, in fact, during the presidential election. It was the day I found out that Jon McCain had the nomination, and I was just depressed and started thinking about our country. And, you know, I mean, I've always been somewhat interested in politics, but not to the extent that I wanted to paint something. And that's when I had the idea for the One Nation Under God. It took me about 6 months of research and then several months to paint it.
So, but let's bring back to the Jon McCain in 2008.
Yeah.
So, when you were depressed, what was the depressing moment? The fact that Jon McCain was the nominee?
Yes.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, I'm very conservative,
okay.
you know, and I was just really hoping that we would have a strong conservative.
Well, and he was a moderate and still is. I mean, in fact, if you look at the history of the Republican Party in the last three, I mean, you've had Bob Dole that lost was a moderate, and Jon McCain lost as a moderate, and let's just hope Mitt Romney, who's another moderate, you know.
I know it.
So let's start there. Why is the Republican Party going to moderates versus conservative, where you have this fraction now in the break-off?
I think that they've been wanting to bring in more of the independents, and they felt like that was a stronger base. But I really believe that it's a strong conservative candidate that's going to win the election for us. And so, you know, I know that Romney's the things he's talked about in the past and things he's done have not been real conservative, but he's talking that way right now and making promises, and we can only hope that he's going to follow through if he becomes president.
Well, that's the key, and I mean, I talk about this every day on radio around this country, is that if we could get some of the politicians to follow through on maybe even like 25% of what they promised, we probably would be a hell of a lot better off as a country.
I think you got it right there.
Just a quarter of it, half of it would be like the lottery, I think, you know? But it seems like there's the candidate and then there's the elected official, and somewhere between those two, it all changes.
It does. A lot of them get corrupted when they get back there. So.
And they say it's the system and what have you. So it's really the brand of American politics today and how we break through that. And I think we're seeing it in both parties, obviously, Democrats and Republicans
alike. They're both guilty. They certainly are.
Yeah. All right, so let's get right into it. I want to bring the first piece I had seen when I heard about you, and I said, wow, this is fascinating. And I hadn't seen the piece yet, but I said, he shows President Obama burning the Constitution? What is that all about, man? It sounds like my kind of guy.
Yeah, pretty intense.
Yeah. So let's show this piece here and tell me what's going on with this piece here now. As you see it on the screen here, you'll see again a visual of Obama and holding up the Constitution as it is in flames. So you see "We the People."
Right. Yeah. I mean, it is an intense picture. It's very dark. You know, it's a straightforward kind of iconic image, you know, of Obama burning the Constitution, but. An important part of this painting is the title, One Nation Under Socialism. And the reason I painted this is that I realized that in November we have this choice we're going to make. Are we going to choose limited government, you know, government under the Constitution, which is what I hope Romney will bring to us, or do we want one nation under socialism? And he didn't necessarily light the fire, but he's fanning the flames, and it's eating up our Constitution. And so I wanted that to be a stark difference so people could think about it.
Jon, if he didn't light the fire, who did?
Well, it's been lit probably since about 1913, and it just continues to get worse and worse. And people sometimes say, why did you not paint something with Bush when he was in office? And actually, it was the end of Bush's second term that started to wake me up that I needed to do something. So it's not just Obama, but he certainly kicked it into high gear, and we're in trouble right now.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah. Well, again, a lot of the Great Recession that we're in now, and lives have been impacted over this past 10 years. It's been a rude awakening into this new century. Certainly, a lot of people believe that happened in the past last year and a half of Bush's presidency, there's a lot of talk about where conservatism went at that point and what happened if he was the conservative candidate, which really set up the country. What I believe, anyways, John, is everything was perfect for a unknown junior senator from Chicago to come in,
perfect storm,
which is a madman, really, to me, and say, "Okay, here you go. You have the keys to the White House, and we'll be back again. We'll see you.
Yeah, do whatever you want.
That's it, man. And we'll be back, and you can't do much worse than the last dude. So, is that right or wrong?
No, I think you're right. And I remember listening to that clip of Obama when he was talking to the Prime Minister of Russia. He says, after the election, I'll have more flexibility.
Yeah,
what does he mean by that?
That's right. That's right.
Scares the willies out of me.
Right. Well, no, you're right on with that. I mean, more flexibility. So flexibility in what? And this is part of the problem of what people are seeing with this current administration. And many people do feel we're headed to a socialistic society. The signs are certainly there.
Yeah.
And it's where we stand right now today. So I like this. You wrote this, one nation under socialism. Socialism. I pledge allegiance to the United States of America and not to an ideology which can never stand. One nation under socialism, divisive, with no liberty or justice for anyone. Those are your words?
That's my words.
Yeah, pretty wild.
Yeah, those are strong words, but that's how I see the direction of our country headed under socialism. I mean, right now, we're not to that extent yet, but we're moving that way quickly.
Right.
A democratic form of socialism.
Right. One of the things that I like about your work is you get down again to the painstaking detail. To me, that's the sign of a great artist, when you can bring out really the evolution of your thoughts and really make that message sing to the person who's looking at this piece of art. As you look at this piece here, you see a lot of the presidents, and tell us what else is going on here, because you have a lot of signs, very quiet signs in your pieces that most people wouldn't know.
Well, it's true. There's a lot of things in here that people would look at and perhaps think they know the meaning, but it goes deeper than that. And behind Jesus with the Constitution, you have all the different patriots of the past who have sacrificed or done things for our country in the sake of our Constitution. And in the front, you have what I consider the living Americans. On one side you have those that support the Constitution. On this side you have those that may be more confused. And for that reason, the fact that I've created these metaphors to describe different Americans, some people get upset, that I would do that. But that's how I feel.
But that's exactly how you're feeling. So the connection again to Christ at this point, and with him again holding the Constitution, the little boy is pointing at it. Again, all your very political figures are here, and you can see what's going on here. The connection here, a lot of people, are probably confused with this.
Right. And what I'm trying to say simply is that I believe the Constitution is a divinely inspired document.
Okay.
And that's what I believe, and as an artist, I express that through my paintings.
Yeah, it's amazing. So it's not just, listen, they always say in life and business and other things, don't talk about politics and don't talk about religion. You kind of broke all those rules,
I broke
man.
all the rules. Yeah. I get a lot of people upset at me.
Yeah, you're throwing it all out there, religion, politics, the whole bit.
And the other thing is that most artists don't explain their work. They expect the public to do that. In fact, you're looked down on if you try to. But I go to great lengths to meticulously explain my paintings. You go on my website and you move around and it tells you what each person is and why they're there.
Yeah, well, that's probably what makes it a little bit different here. Well, you've said here, and tell me if these again are your words, I believe, our federal government has been moving in the direction of socialism for over 100 years again. Many presidents and politicians have compromised the Constitution as we have given away our freedoms under the guise of entitlements and government intervention. The Constitution never guaranteed equal things, only equal rights and justice, you say. In America, we should be free to succeed and free to fail. And so you're really talking about the essence of America, the free enterprise system and what we're all about, capitalism, right?
Absolutely.
And yet that's not the role of government these days, is it?
No, they're trying to kind of control everything. And we know that when government gets involved, things usually start to get messed up pretty good.
Well, we've seen the signs of that, but yet there are a lot of people in America who believe still that big government is an answer somehow, not just the administration, but there are a lot of people out here who really believe that somehow government is an answer to things. And if you look at the history of our country, I think that, you could poke a lot of holes in that theory, huh?
You could, especially in welfare and other.
But a question I have for you here, back to welfare again. Again, critics say that there are those that fail not for lack of attempt, but from circumstances. That circumstances are not always in the right place for people, and so on and so forth, and that those who succeed have a moral obligation to help others. I guess So how do you view failure? Where do you draw the line? Like we're talking hunger, food stamps, illness, health, insurance, et cetera, et cetera. Where do you draw that line?
Well, I think that nobody should expect the government to be the solution for anything. Is where I draw it. I think that people should help people, but not expect the government to be that. Now we have these different welfare programs already in place, and we'll use them. But you look at how our country was before we had those institutions, and we weren't even in as bad a shape as we are now. And so I'm not saying that we should just take away all of it. I mean, the country wouldn't be ready for that, but we should scale down. We should control it instead of growing it.
John, so besides being a wonderfully gifted artist and really putting your work out there, how do you think people are related? The people who really embrace your work, there's got to be a lot of enthusiasm around that, huh?
Yeah, I just paint how I feel, and I know there's a lot of people out there that feel the same way about the direction our country is headed, about the role of God in our lives. And so, there are people that respond to this work, and just as many who probably despise what I do, but that's okay.
Yeah. Well, again, I think it's a metric of success, I think, in this country. I mean, I don't think you're going to be successful without, pissing off a few people along the journey.
Yeah. I've learned that.
I mean, we've all learned that, I think, really, on the streets of entrepreneurship and business. I mean, that's just the way it is. I mean, you can't live life being pretentious, and I think you've proven that with your work now and really putting it out there and exposing yourself in the way that you have and your thoughts.
Yeah. And, I'm amazed. I didn't realize that I was among such a few number of artists that do conservative subjects.
Yeah.
Among the liberal community, there's so many artists that speak their mind. Everybody praises them. But when you have a conservative who speaks out, it's all propaganda.
Well, because you bring up a great point, because a lot of artists really, we know them as being a liberal industry, more or less. And so you bring up a great point. And so maybe you've brought a fresh vitality and thinking into the conservative movement. You're here, obviously, at the Republican National Convention, and you're kind of taking it all in and really, I guess, getting your message out there.
I'm trying my best.
More and more, yeah. And you've been, you've been on national television. You've been really, connecting with people, I think. And I know that you work. In fact, if folks want to go to, I know your website is it Jon?
It's McNaughtonArt.com.
McNaughtonArt.com. You see it on the screen now, and so people can go there. And you also have some fascinating videos on YouTube that are just, to me, well done. Great music and inspiring and really grab you. I applaud that, because you really are marketing this well and singing the message out there. One of them, I understand, has over 4 million hits or something like that?
It does, yeah, The Forgotten Man.
Yeah. Why has that been such a draw?
Well, again, people are very connected to the meaning behind it. With Obama, The Forgotten Man is probably one of the most powerful paintings I've done, and it talks about the things that Obama's done that are unconstitutional.
Right, and it gets right to the core of that.
It gets right to the core of it.
It is a fascinating piece. What I liked about that piece, if I remember correctly, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I think you show sort of the presidents that are on the left and the presidents on the right, their thinking, and I think you show George W. Bush, sort of with the liberals, but pointing back to the conservatives. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right.
Which I thought was a fascinating sign. You were kind of sending the message that, listen, I remember what those last couple of years were like, and, I think he was trying to remember he was a conservative, conservative, but everything was becoming unwound.
Right. Not everybody picks up on those subtleties.
I thought it was fascinating the way you had him positioned there and the way some of the other pieces were, and I hadn't spoke to you about it.
He's part of that big government machine, but, he's pointing back at the forgotten man. What about that guy?
Yeah. All right, so let's talk about right now where we stand in 2012 here. Mm-hmm. We have an election here, and let's bring you forward to that. We have Mitt Romney as, again, the nominee. Mm-hmm. He wasn't your first choice, you've sort of stated to me.
No, I never really settled on anybody because there wasn't, for me, a perfect candidate going through the whole thing. I liked a lot of them for different things. But now that Romney has the nomination, I'm going to support him. Right. And I hope that he will do everything he says.
As we said when we started this off, he'll do what he said. Who would you have picked out of the candidates we had through the primary season? Who was it that sung to you?
Oh, I liked Herman Cain. I liked some of Ron Paul. I liked some of Michelle Bachmann. It was like I wish I could just take a little bit of each one of these. And
actually, that's what a lot of people were saying through the entire primary race, and that was kind of an ongoing joke on radio. We talked about it a lot. If we could take a little bit of each of these people, we'd have like the perfect candidate or something.
I know it.
Herman Cain's been on the show with us, and he is a fascinating man, and he drives a very hard message. A lot of people like Ron Paul, and like you say, some of Ron Paul, some of his worldview and international policies were a little dangerous to most. Do you agree?
Yeah, some of it was. The thing about Ron Paul, and I've had a lot of people who are friends of mine that are Ron Paul supporters, and they're like, why don't you support Ron Paul? And I say, look, the country's not ready for Ron Paul. Mm-hmm. He wouldn't even get much accomplished if he was in there.
So what you're saying is you're also a realist.
Yes. Yeah. Right now, the bus is headed off the cliff. Okay. If we get Romney in there, we'll slow down the bus.
Well, and let's bring that point full circle for everybody. And I think that's really where, for those of you, really understand this is probably where the Republican Party is right this moment here, okay? Mm-hmm. Because when we started this off and we talked about the conservative nature and why Mitt Romney is the moderate, but Mitt Romney has an opportunity to bridge the gap right now. He has an opportunity to bring both parties together. And again, if you're going to win an election, you've got to win it with the independent voters. You've got to win it in those swing states. Yeah. We know how Republicans are going to vote. We know how Democrats are going to vote, John.
Yeah. It's that narrow group of people we have to get.
You're right. So if we put an extremist in, they're not going to win the general election. There's no way, and I think that's the thinking. So that's the bridge of where we stand as conservatives and where the party is and where we're trying to take it, right?
Yeah, but I appreciate what Ron Paul did because he woke up a lot of Americans to the issue of the Federal Reserve.
Absolutely did. And Ron Paul, I think, has been a blessing to the campaign. We'll like it or leave it. And he's enraged and empowered the youth. He's got the youth excited. The kids love him.
Yeah.
And you look at Ron Paul, he's an older man, and you think, what's the attraction? Well, the kids he's talking common sense, and the kids like that today, okay?
Right.
Because they see their country going down the tubes fast. They see what's happening around the world and certainly around America, and they don't like what they see. There's talk of the runaway debt and the deficits and the bankrupting of our country, and our companies for that matter. Our business community is real, and until people wake up and you continue to just feed the tiger, which is the federal government, and it's a runaway train.
We need to stop the crony capitalism that's going on.
It's everywhere today, and it scares all of us, John. And I think people have to see this. It really is a very, very rude awakening. So you have let's tell me about quickly this new work. You have a new piece coming out, I heard. Yep. What's the title and what's it about, please?
Okay, here's the title. I've had a lot of people waiting for it. And it's a term that you've heard before, Obamanation.
Yes.
It's a term you've heard before, but never have anyone seen anything like this. What it is you have Obama standing at his podium, and around him are all the different things that have happened during his presidency. It's almost like a garage sale, an accumulation of metaphors that describe every outrageous atrocity.
Did you have enough canvas for that, buddy?
I didn't. I topped out at about 65 things.
You can fill a whole room with canvases, brother.
And there was still things I couldn't fit in the painting. When I started it, I thought, this shouldn't be too hard. Yeah. But seriously, no president has done so many outrageous things since they've been in office as this man has.
Yeah. Now, so when does this piece come out?
I'm going to release it September 3rd.
Okay.
Next Monday.
And the title again is?
Abomination.
Abomination, yeah. I refer to him, by the way, on radio quite a bit, and many of you out there know this, as President Oblabla. Because when he speaks, that's really all I hear is obla, 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 blah, 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 blah. I don't really know what the hell he's talking about, but I just hear a lot of blah, 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 huh?
Yeah. He's pretty good on a teleprompter, but, get him talking otherwise.
Yeah. Well, like you and I, we don't have a prompter, so we got to hit the real life. Yeah. No, you're right. You're right. He's lived and died by that teleprompter. In fact, recently on the campaign trail, he let the prompter go, and boy, you've seen some of the blunders come out, the truth come out. Now you're really seeing some of the socialistic attitude of him, right?
Right. Oh yeah. Remember Joe the plumber? He caught him off guard.
That's exactly it. And then that's the truth, and that's when the camera picks that up. Oh man, you love that because that's it really is about the truth today. I mean, you may not like it, but and that's what I do every day is being out loud. What I mean is get to the truth, John. That's what Malcolm Out Loud is.
Good deal.
You may not like it, but don't ask the question if you don't want the answer.
People want the truth.
I believe so. Yeah. I believe so. It's painful.
It is.
It hurts, but it's well, John. I'm a huge fan of your work, and I think your pieces are just absolutely amazing. All of your work is, and it's such a privilege to have the work hanging in our studio today, and really appreciate what you've done and how you've connected this. And you're certainly a man that's not afraid of controversy, and and I'd like to keep check with you and see what you're doing ahead here, and have you back on and really talk about it. But again, Jon McNaughton, and the website again you'll see on the screen right now is McNaughton Art.
McNaughtonArt.com.
So again, you can check out John more by going to McNaughtonArt.com. You'll see it on the screen right now. And, go to YouTube. Do yourself a favor. Type his name in there and it's actually his work is a pleasure to see. I think no matter what side of the aisle you're on, you'll appreciate what John's done. The music, the inspiring message he has behind his work, I think is incredible. You can connect with John, too, on Facebook just after you connect with Malcolm Out Loud again. It's always good to be with you here. This is Malcolm Out Loud. Remember, get involved, get loud, and think on the brink.